How you doing, Gav? Welcome back to another show.
What's happening, babes? You okay?
I'm all right, my friend. Not too bad. It's getting warmer, so I'm getting warmer as a
Well,
result.
you've still got a jacket on in a minute.
Well, all bears don't come straight out of the cave. They gradually work their way out the door.
Hey, I was watching something last night. I've been doing these cold showers and that for a while now. I've been doing them
Yeah, yeah,
since
yeah,
since first lockdown. So it's the anniversary of the first lockdown today. So it's been a year.
yeah.
We've been doing cold showers for a year. And I watched a documentary on the Iceman last night, Wim Hof. And mate, I'd pay to see you do shit like
I can't do that.
that. I know how much you hate the cold.
I can't
Like
stand it.
you'll go to bed in full clothes, a sleeping bag, and still be cold. So
I wear a woolly hat in bed.
I would pay to see you do cold showers or go and spend a week with the Iceman.
I would never do anything in cold weather. I won't even holiday in it. I don't. I see. I would be offended. I wouldn't even go on holiday to a cold country. I just couldn't do it. It's impossible. I'd see it as a waste of money. It's.
Oh,
I just can't do it. I'm Caribbean for a reason. It's just. It ain't happening. I
just to
can't do
see the
it.
facial expressions that you come out with.
I won't even leave the house when it's cold. I just. There's nothing about cold weather I enjoy. I get disappointed when it's nighttime, just because I know the temperature will drop. I just can't do it. I'm designed to be in heat. That's it. And when it's cold, when it's the winter, I would literally, when someone says, what animal are you most like, what's your characteristics of an animal? If you could choose any animal, it's a bear. It's a big brown mountain bear that just goes into a cave, hibernates, and just eats loads and sleeps. That's it. That's all I want to do. And I'm fine with it. What animal would you be? Peacock.
Peacock, where the fuck did that come from? Peacock. I don't know. I don't know.
What about a green-headed duck?
I don't know where you're going with this one, mate.
Just a good animal.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about exercises. An exercise that a duck could manage in water. Exercises that you should never miss from a workout. And I would like to start this conversation by asking you a very short, sharp question,
God.
which is, what are your three favorite exercises? Go.
My three favorites.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't overthink it, because you're going to go into all sorts. Trap 3, raise at 94 degrees.
I can eat trap 3 raises. Dip.
Yeah.
Chin up. And it's a tough one between, like, I love deadlifts. Deadlift.
All right, that's it then.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of a trap bar, Olympic bar, or dumbbells, or any other variable?
Olympic bar.
You're an Olympic bar man. Good.
But it's not in Olympic bar. There's a couple of ways you could do the deadlift. Like, you got your sumo deadlift, you got your conventional deadlift. Like, I don't mind squat. Like, it was a toss up between the squats and the deadlift. Front squats are tough because they're hard to master. They're harder technically than the back squat.
Mhm.
But like, if you get them right, you hit so much with one thing. Like, your abs will get nailed, your upper back gets nailed. Technically, you'll use lighter weight than a back squat, but the transfer over to the back squat's really good if you can get good at front squats. But I do enjoy the deadlift. It'll work every muscle in the body.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much. And like, if your nervous system's had enough, you ain't lifting it. Like, it's just no way. There's no way you're going to lift it, so you know whether you're going to do it or not, right? And the problem is, you need to be. It is a technical exercise, so you need to be aware where you're going to be tight from. What muscles need to be activated, keeping the bar tight, so lats need to be on. You need to be in a good position. Yeah. Otherwise, like, you can do your back in quite quick. It is a technical exercise. So it's like building up, and there's many variations you can do as well, even with the Olympic bar.
Deadlifts always give me a bit of a nightmare. It was a funny nightmare, but a nightmare time when I used to live in China, and this S&C coach, who will remain nameless, ends up getting a K box. Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a small recoil motor with on like a platform that goes between your legs.
K box. Mate.
Yeah, a bit like a belt squat. Yeah. So you put this K box. Go on.
Eccentrically, mate, they're they're brilliant.
Yeah, well, that's why he's got it, because he works with an Olympic team.
Yeah.
But it's not if you work with office workers from a Chinese office that's above your building, or with local gym members.
If you do that right, mate, it'll ruin you. Like, it will ruin you.
That is what happens. That is, and that was what was funny about it, because he brought it in raving about how good it was. And I'm sure, and this is where I think me and you are differentiators in the industry, because we can notice that something's good, but also notice when and when not to use it.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit, almost like a squat, when we say a squat's a great exercise or deadlift's a great exercise. But if you're not in the right position to do it, it's going to, you may as well go and get run over by your own car. You just let the handbrake off, let it roll over you, job done. You'll be injured, right? So he brings his K-box into the gym in China, slaps it down, gets all the coaches, which are basically gym instructors in our language over here. No disrespect, but the level of qualification just wasn't there. So they just do what they're told. Me and you know this from working in China anyway. It was just tell us what to do and don't worry about teaching us why. It was just do it. And apart from the girl that refused to do our course or any physical activity the day we was there because she was on a period. Can you remember that one? Yeah. Anyway, so he brings his K-box into work, straps up the first junior coach. There you go. Get yourself into these squats. Bang, 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 as fast as you can. 10 seconds, the guy shaking on the floor like he just put his hand in a toaster. It was hilarious. Great work. Unstraps him. Next one rolls in, straps him up. Go on, up and down. This little short range squat thing going on. Legs are shaking. Oh, he shit himself. Next one comes in. It was just the funniest thing ever, because, you know, stereotypically anyway, just being in China, one thing I noticed from my experience of being there and the 15 years that me and you went back and forth was the actual fundamental strength of people. Just they physically weren't strong, you know, even to do general movement, any exercise, they didn't physically have the strength. It's a massive generalization, but when you've got sort of
but when you typically look at it, like you look at the Chinese like Olympic weightlifting team, they're strong. Like there's a lot of strong. Like if they get into the strength work, it's a massive gap of either they're really strong, but there's no in between. Nothing. Like they don't train or they go for it. Do you know what I mean?
They've all got that small torso, small leg stature, which makes them very good at the squat techniques and the Olympic lifts. Whereas obviously you're not going to get your tall. You know, I don't know the history of Olympic lifting, but I don't know many Scandinavian Olympic lifters because they're all very tall, aren't they? Even the women are taller than me in Scandinavia. But anyway. He brings in his K-box, everyone's shaking, and then he's just like, it's the best piece of equipment on the market. And ever since there, I don't think I've done a squat or a deadlift since that day. Just because I always think of that, because he's just obliterating people with this thing. If you've not seen it, go on YouTube and have a look. It's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
It's like that game.
I've used the K-box and it was tough. Like, especially if you get the proper load on it, to decelerate. So for athletes and things, it's fantastic, especially basketball players, Olympic lifting, all that type of stuff, because you need to decelerate that weight fast. So it's great in that aspect, but you remember the eccentric work is the one that's going to damage you the most. Mm-hmm. So soreness wise, if you go to town on that, you ain't walking for days.
They weren't walking, and that's the thing. They weren't walking the next day. I was like, I hope you're happy. Yeah. Remember that game you play where you all sit around, you hold that little sensor, and it goes do 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 do, and all of a sudden someone goes gets a shock. It reminds me of that. It's just like you knew you was gonna get it eventually. They get it there, they strap themselves in, they start going do 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 doing the squats, and they go on the floor. Right, here's my three.
Go ahead.
Ready? Sit back, relax, get your popcorn out, sweetened or salted. Back row.
Yeah. Back row. So any form of like seated row or T-bar row? Or?
Seated, chest supported, narrow and a wide option. You know those little U-shaped horns that you get where you can go narrow on top and wide. I'm talking that. That's where I'm going. And if
the handles rotate?
No, they don't rotate. They've just got a little pivot angle to go a little bit higher, a little bit lower.
Okay,
you can adjust your height, you can adjust your distance. And if I want to even specify the one that I would say in my 21 years, the one that gave me the best angle, the profile of the machine was so good. It's the old square white Life Fitness machines with the red pad. Nice. That's the one, Gav. Don't know why. If you want to get
one, mate, we'd have to. Have you tried any of the Prime kit?
No.
So they allow you to change where it's heaviest and lightest throughout what part of the range you're working as well. So I used one in I think it was Ultimate Performance in Marbella when I was over there. Yeah, you could change. So typically the hardest part's up at the top where you're in the shorter position. But this one allowed you to change it where it was lighter at the top and heavier at the bottom. So as you got to the top, it was like you could contract your back even better.
Yeah.
It was heavy as hell at the bottom.
Well,
So it just changed. It just changed it. So like one person I know talks really well about that type of stuff is James.
That is exactly what I was going to say. We need to get James on here about these profiles and machines because
he's really good.
I fell in love again with the back row because of going training with James. Because one of the things we did was, can you remember those old, those little sit-up pads that people buy that you put at the lower back? They're like an oval half moon shape. Yeah. Little hump. So he carries around one of these little pads so that he gets on that. And you know those luggage straps you get to put around your suitcase. So he's got this literally swag bag full of equipment that he takes with him. His bag that he walks around the gym with is bigger than the one with his clothes in. It's quite funny, but he goes around this little swag bag, pulls out these pads, and then he attaches the pads so that he can get more rounding of his upper thoracic when he goes forward in the motion. So it molds over it. It really stretches all the back of his shoulders.
Nice.
Anyway, I started doing it with him. I was like, God, I'm lowering the weight and getting so much more contraction through those muscles by doing it. So that was why I got back into the back row, because I also think it was big bang for your buck. You know, when someone wants to improve the posture and look better, that's the way I'm going first. Those posterior chain exercises are fantastic for it. So that was there. Also, while we're on the topic of James, actually, one of the things he did talking about the machine is he had these little strips of magnets.
Yeah.
What he did was he made them himself. He built them up. So you know the runner, the pulley where it runs, where the cable runs across the machine. Yeah. He would put the magnet on the strip. So when you're pulling, just at that point where the load isn't as great, you hit this ramp, and it just basically tugs on. It goes up and over the biggest point of the magnet, stretching the cable, making it now the most forceful area on the lift. So he can choose whether or not the load's highest at the top or the bottom based on where he places these magnets.
Nice.
Brilliant. Going to the gym with him was just like an engineering degree.
Yeah, he's good. Like he's really good. Like, I know he spent a lot of time with, I think it was Tom Purvis. And like Tom, fantastic. But I need to spend some time with James.
We're going to get him on the show.
We'll get him on. And if we're not in lockdown, we might as well do it from wherever his gym is.
Yeah, well, I know where it is. I'm not saying it's like the Batcave or Robin Hood, because it's in Nottingham. And if you've seen Robin Hood, they blindfold you when you try and get to Robin Hood's house, so you don't know the way in or out. Remember, Marion?
Yeah.
There you go. And then the second exercise, I go lying hamstring curl, because I never realised I had muscles in the back of my legs till a few years ago, and that burn now is disgusting. I hate it.
Yeah.
But it was when I started knocking around with scientists doing cycling, realising that point at the bottom of the stroke, when you get that glute hamstring engagement, that retraction of the pedal, almost like a runner when the foot hits the floor. If you can contract and scrape back your heel, get in the hamstring and glute recruitment, then it means your acceleration going forwards through the roof. And once I started doing that, everything improved. And the last one,
you were doing a lying hamstring curl, now, were you?
Yeah, I was doing it lying just to get as good stretch as I could get, and then bringing back in that thing I said about James there, those pads, whacking that bad boy underneath. I moved it around, sometimes under the hips, depending on which machine I was on, sometimes just above the knees, so I get a real good stretch there right at the bottom, your hamstring. So you can really play around with your pad placement to change that, what we refer to as the profile of the machine, and it just, the contraction,
especially putting in the pelvis, it allows you to just tuck that pelvis backwards a little bit, so you're not. So you see people when they struggle, they can't get to the top of it, and they arch their lumbar spine takes over.
There you go.
Hips come off.
Yeah.
So we used to put foam rollers on.
Foam rollers,
in the gym. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do foam rollers. Get yourself a $9.99 ab pad. New accessory. Last one, rotator cuff, because anyone that's tore a rotator cuff, pulled it, strained it, years I've had the problem. Fell on it. It's bad sprain on my shoulder playing football. Fell on top of it. You can't do anything. You can't run because you can't swing your arm. You can't hold a bar to do squats because you can't put it on your back. So even a safety bar hurt, because anything where you're elevating your arm was hurting.
Yeah.
You're done. You're basically walking. That's it. No ab work, no shoulder work, no leg work, anything you do. I mean, some resistance work, fixed machine you was okay with, but rotator cuff totally derails you. So I'd advise anyone to get that strong, especially if you're doing your dips and your chins like you're doing.
Yeah, you talk. So this is where, like, for example, and this is where programming comes in. So for example, if I do dip in a session and I program that in, I always finish with an external rotator exercise. I learned that from Stefan Kazold at Kilo. Like, used.
Still there, Gav? Please pause for a commercial break. We've got a freeze going on. Well, we've got slight technical issues here today, and we've either got my computer that's froze or Gav's. Damn.
You go off, you get cut off. We're still going, mate.
I think the internet dropped.
We're still going. There he is. Do you
Yeah,
catch any of that?
No.
Okay.
You said I got to the point where you said you put in external rotators after your dips.
Yeah. So I learned that from Stefan Kazold at Kilo Strength, who's one of the old course instructors at Polican Group. So he coached me for years. I spent a lot of time with him. He mentored me a lot around program design. So one of the things we put in place is external rotator work after you if you've got a dip, anything like that in your programming. So it's like the one thing you look at as well is like the angle that you put the external rotation in, what type of implement you use. So if they're weak, typically, you're coming from the strength point of view, the one we use through like the PICP and Polican Group style stuff, is changing the implement. So if you're going to go twice a week, so if somebody's injured, you would hit the external rotators twice a week. So one day might be with a dumbbell, another day might be with a cable, because then you hit the strength curve a little bit differently at different angles. So one day might be elbow by the side from a cable, and the other day might be elbow supported by the side or in front of you with a dumbbell type of thing, or on knee, or like you need to change it and vary it as much as possible. So you're hitting as many angles and different parts of the strength curve as much as you can. And that was a quicker way that we saw strength increases from the external rotators. But definitely, if you put a dip in.
I want to ask you a question about dips while I've got you, Gav. Yeah. Because you get these people, and I see it all the time with people in sort of your commercial gyms where they do this thing which is a bit frustrating. And they say, well, if you can't do your press-ups, you do them on your knees. And then you just completely change in the exercise approach and the mechanics of it and how it works. And then you question whether or not doing press-ups on your knees will ever even get to a point where you can do them on your toes.
Yeah.
And there's good and bad points in there as well. But, you try and be as close to the exercise, if not doing the exercise, to improve it. So the question is based on dips. Because a lot of people listening will see or have witnessed people doing dips that are supported. I'm talking about looping a rubber band and sticking your legs in it and doing it that way. What's your take and feelings on doing these variations?
Well, I think if you look at like the dip and the chin that I said one of my favorite exercises is because like it's a bodyweight exercise that a lot of people want to achieve, especially the chin up. And if you look at the different hand grips you can put on a chin up, and especially with the dip, yes, you'll hit the chest for the dip and the triceps, and the chin you'll hit the back, mid-back, lats, and the biceps. So you basically, it's a real good bang for buck exercise. If you look at that functional realm that people go into, it is a carryover exercise that you can carry over to whatever. But in terms of progressing both, I think, you've got push-ups and pull-downs that can help it, but in terms of the concentric action. So when you're actually pulling or pushing up.
Yeah.
The thing that's, you won't get carryover from a pull down to a chin up because basically the eccentric strength needs to be there. So if you're looking at force absorption, so you're basically the eccentric, that lowering part of let's say the chin up or even the dip, you need to be able to absorb the body weight or the force to be able to contract out of it. Mm-hmm. So the first place I start, now depending on the weight of the person, is they need to be able to control their body weight under control. So we start with eccentrics, and then we can work like isometrics through the eccentric phase before we do any type of pulling. Mm-hmm. So that's when you can sort of superset and triset certain things, where you might focus on just doing eccentric only work on the dip, or the chin up, and then the superset exercise, you rest 10 seconds, and you might go to the pull down or the push up.
Yeah.
So you then regress back to the easier exercise. So you still get the concentric, but you're still then teaching the body to move, sort of control itself, because essentially, if you look at the abs, they're going to be working very hard. All the stabilizers of the joints are going to be working really, really hard, especially controlling that pelvis and the whole body as you're coming down through the motion. So unless you do that, you only get that carryover. You have to put that in there at some point.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll be better off doing the old hop, skip, and a jump, getting yourself to the top of your dip, doing your eccentrics, lowering yourself under control, or even holding isometrically, like you said, absorbing that pressure first, rather than getting yourself a band and sort of working. I feel like a jack in a box and just springing up and down. It's just it just seems a bit strange, that one.
Yeah, right. But then you could then put the band, like you could even put the band in after that as the concentric work.
Yeah,
because essentially the toughest part of the dip is going to be the bottom. So as that band stretches at the bottom, it's going to give you that little bit of a push out. It's going to be safer for the shoulder joint if you're in that deep range as well, to get you back out. So it might be beneficial just to do lower in first and then attach the band afterwards and then do your concentric reps.
Yeah, and guys, that information as well can carry over into any exercise. It doesn't have to be dips or chins. It could be anything. We're trying to promote the ability to contract and hold, and like Gav just said there, I think it's a good word. I'm going to use it now for the rest of the week. Thanks. Absorb the force so you can deal with it, so you can gain the stabilization needed for it, so your strength will improve in that.
That'll go to push-ups too, because you have to remember, even push-ups on knees, that might be too tough for a lot of people, because you see people where their elbows are flaring out if they still can't do push-ups on knees. So I've had a lot of females in my facility that come in, they want to be able to do push-ups and chin-ups and that type of thing. And typically we have to then start even at an incline. So you got your wall push-ups. Yeah. But you might start on your knees with, like, the Reebok decks where you can incline one side. So we typically start them there. But it's the same scenario. We only focus then on eccentric work. Yeah. So it might just be eccentrics, then we move to dumbbell work for the concentric. Yeah. Because then you can lighten load. So you're still training the triceps. You're still, or it might be even tricep extension type work just to get that overload. But it's still controlling the pelvis as you're moving through space. Now, once they get stronger at that, that's when you start adding pauses at the bottom, for example. So you have to recruit more to push out. So you recruit more muscle fibers and so forth. But yeah, the step-by-step approach to it. And typically within, like, I've got one girl in my group at the minute. So even though I like market the guys, we do get females coming to the group. They're more sort of CrossFit based or like alpha female, so to speak. Yeah. But this girl, she couldn't do any push-ups, and literally within the space of 8 weeks, she's pumping out 6 reps on her toes. Yeah. But all we've done is we've progressed through eccentrics, isometrics, that type of thing from the knees, and she's fully flying through a normal push-ups, like, you know. Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. I think those marginal gains as well, they breed more success, don't they? As soon as she came in for one reason, which might have been a goal to whatever it would be, change body shape, lose body fat, but she needed to get there by improving strength in so many other areas. So once she can see in a short space of time, you can do those press ups, you can hold yourself on your toes. In her head, she's thinking, this is working. Even though it might not look different to her in the mirror, or it might not different in a dress size or on a scales, she knows there's progression there. So it's breeding success. And that's the stepping stone approach you need to get to build successful strategy. You've got to feel improvement along the way, haven't you? Yeah. You get a lot of people, like, not a lot of people, I shouldn't say that, but it's the other muscular contractions don't get used enough. Yeah. Like, if you're looking like the eccentric motion, the isometrics, things like that, if they're not programmed in, it's like you look at tendon strength and tendon health, you need good eccentrics for that. That's primed to help those. And the reason I bring that up is I saw a video the other day, bless him, there's a guy in this like fitness influencer bodybuilder, like, and his pec popped off, like tore off the bone, but he's coming down with heavy load. Yeah. And it's through that eccentric. He wasn't even pushing, it was through the eccentric, and all of a sudden pop, and you could see his chest pop up. Yeah. Because the muscle popped off the bone and came through. So like, he's got a lot of rehab to do. Yeah. But it's progressive overload. Yes. Like, you need progressive overload, But if you look at like good periodization, you still need to put in eccentric work. You still need to put in isometric work to allow that tissue to tolerate enough, like again, absorption. You need to be able to absorb that load. Do you know what I mean? So you need to progressively overload it that way as well. So
I just think it's interesting sitting and listening to us talking. I'm trying to picture myself if I was someone listening to us talk, and especially someone that's known us for a long while. I bet there's people that are going to listen to this that we've known in the industry for many years. And we were best known when we were younger for really pioneering the whole movement of movement, if that's even a thing, where, you know, when we was doing Viper and TRX and doing the Gary Gray stuff, it was all about these lunge matrix and functional movement and stand up to train and free movement and all those kind of analogies that we used to tell people, you know, get yourself moving, you sat at a desk all day. And it's funny because we've talked about our favorite exercises or ones that we shouldn't be missing programmed, but yet we're still going back now to fixed pin resistance. And I remember a course years ago when someone said to me, well, this is rubbish, it's not even functional, it was a shoulder press he was talking about. It's a load of rubbish. I went, well, I've got a shoulder injury, so what's not functional about it? He just couldn't answer it. And it's because I know what his head was, we need people to move, and I get that, and I'm not saying that's not right, but what we're talking about here, everything that I mentioned was to do with injuries and posture. And everything you spoke about was to do with movement and strengthening the body to prepare you to do things more successfully. And all of our diagnostic tests, what we used to do, whether it be a lunge and return, whether it be a walk-in gait pattern, and was looking at swing your arms left and right, and let's see how your trunk torso rotates. Even though we wanted to improve that, the fundamentals when we draw it back was you don't have enough strength to do that in the first place. It goes back to that age-old argument of, is it stability you're trying to get first or strength? Both, because one breeds the other.
Exactly. It can be like you could open Pandora's box on it. There's essentially, when you break it down, like when you're talking about joint proprioception and how to stimulate hip proprioceptors compared to the foot, like you can do all those things, but essentially you still need that muscular control, and again you can switch those muscular proprioceptors on, like the GTOs and the muscle spindles, via those other proprioceptors, because now the foot and the hip are talking together, which will then signal other pathways as well. But from a fundamental point of just getting somebody strong within a muscle first and giving them stability and confidence to do something, it allows them that better control and giving them more stability and things like that. So it depends. I think it just depends on the person, because some like, and when you bring it in and what type of stuff what's the goal, like for a start. It's like, if your goal is muscle mass, well, you're going to need to fix something in and overload it at the end of the day. You're going to isolate something to a certain degree to overload it. There's no way you're going to use enough load, do you know what I mean, to overload the muscle. If you're using your whole body for the movement, not to say you won't do whole body movements, but if you really want your pecs to grow, you're going to have to lock it in and you have to overload it and you have to get it stronger.
Definitely. All right then. Well, just to bring it to a summary and a close, do any of your three choices change or differ, same thing, for somebody that was trying to lose body fat?
No, not necessarily. If they can do them, if anything, I'd use those more. If they can actually manage those exercises. If they can't, I would give them different versions of that. So if they want to improve the chin up and they're after fat loss and they can do one or two, then I would put like eccentric work in. I would do isometrics and still finish off with like pull downs or banded stuff, just to get the extra repetitions in to work them within certain rep ranges. If they can't do the dip, I'd probably go to decline bench press because it hit the same angle. So that would be one of your better bang for bucks, and you can manipulate the load a bit more then. But dips, chins, deadlifts, you've got different forms of deadlifts as well. So if you got back issues, you might change it to a trap bar. But you're looking at big bang for buck movements that will burn a ton of calories, use a lot of muscle mass. Like there's so many hormonal benefits to that as well. So in terms of it adding lean mass and things like that, yeah, I would keep those in. And
I would. I've just written down. I'm looking at the six that we've chose between us: dips, chins, deadlifts, back row, line hamstring curl, and rotator cuff, internal and external rotator work. That's a pretty decent program. If you did that in a gym, you'd get somewhere.
Yeah.
Massively. Posturally, strength-wise, injury prevention, performance, you got it. I think we've ticked everything there, and that's completely unprompted. You pick 3, I pick 3. Let's see where it takes us. I never even knew what you was going to choose, and you didn't know what I was going to choose. That means that me and you are connected in a weird alien type way.
Like,
got to be.
Seen Avatar?
Yeah, I'm blue as well.
Yeah,
yeah.
I like Avatar.
I didn't even. Do you know what? It's funny because there's no chest work in there as such. You know, like a bench press or a press up or a dumbbell press and that, which is quite refreshing because that's people's go-to. There's a lot of corrective work in there as well for the everyday person. That's a good one. I reckon people should do that. I think we could program that in and people could do that. Well, I think that's good. I think it gives people some direction, some programming, some good go-to bits of advice, and some reflective points, don't you?
Exactly. Perfect.
That's all you're going to get from us. You're just going to get damn good information.
This is it. Programs, fat loss, workouts.
People just got to do it. They just got to get on with it. And you also know there's a friend of ours called James that takes a bag to the gym with magnets and pads in it.
You're not carrying a magnet in your bag. You ain't doing it.
Funny
doing anything right.
To finish that story off, we were doing some filming. I was down there early in one morning, 7 o'clock, with their filming, and we was doing some hamstring stuff. And he'd put these magnets on, and then he had to go at a client around the corner at another gym. So he left. And he forgot the magnet. Well, I was still training, so I thought, you know what? When James is away, Marvin will play. Not fully understanding the engineering, I started banging these magnets on every piece of machine going. Different angles, different all sorts. And all of a sudden, I rang him. I said, I'll meet you now when you finish your client and I'll give you your magnets back. So I met him in the car park and there's this transaction of magnets taking place. I'd love the police to have seized us. Just magnets for the gym. Just magnets, that's all. Anyway, next day, I was swearing. I was swearing at him. So what have you done? I mean, you put a silly magnet on the thing, and that was when I started understanding more about these machine profiles and where you sit as well. Going back to that back row analogy, was when you sit on a back row, and whether you position the pad, whether it's the thick end at the top or the thin end at the top, because that's going to give you greater range through the fascia.
Yeah.
You also did these little tweaks where you push your hips a little bit further under the pad, or he'd sit a little bit more twisted on the pad, and you go single armed. Jesus, man, those little acute variables. He would sit. I remember doing a back session, and 45 minutes later, he wasn't off the back row. He was still on it, still doing different variations of his back on the same piece, and that just shows really. I mean, he's not just changing it for the sake of changing it and saying, "Oh, go narrow grip and wide grip and on top and underhand." This guy's mapping out how he's fatiguing the muscle from start to finish.
Yeah.
As it's getting fatigued and he's hitting that new level of fatigued, he's making adaptations to make sure he hits the muscle at greater angles. Incredible stuff, but that's why he looks the way he looks, and that's why he gets the results he gets as well. So there you go. We're advertising for him. Let's not do that anymore. A good friend of ours, though.
You're on commission now.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Right. Anything to say to our listeners, Gavin, before we leave?
No, good. Hope you're all well. If you've got any questions, if there's anything specific you want to know or want us to talk about, just let us know.
What's your Instagram? Is it at Gavin Attore now?
Yeah.
It's just saying that, isn't it? It was just your name you changed once in a while. So you got at Gav and Attore and at Marvin B360, all the way around.
All the way.
And you can hit us up with questions, feedback, insults, and if you want to talk about things that are nothing to do with fitness, send them my way.
Let's have it.
Anything to do with fitness, send to Gav. Right, thanks for your time, Gav. I'll speak to you in another episode.
Speak later.